Welcome to Love Always Self. I'm Shyra.
Hi, y'all. I'm Karista, and thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Love Always Self. We are always so glad to have you here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
So, we thought we would take the opportunity to just have a philosophical discussion, maybe just go down a little tiny rabbit hole of spirituality and just what ifs, and offering different perspectives or different possibilities to a question that I encountered from a conversation, one of my morning conversations with my dad. So he had asked, I don't remember how this came about, but he had asked if the universe is so big and so vast and infinite in all ways, how do you really believe that if me, one little tiny insignificant person, talks to the universe, that it has time to listen?
Ooh, let's get thought provoking, shall we?
Yeah. So just wanted to bring that to the table and see what you had to say about that, Shyra.
Had you asked me a couple of years ago before I started channeling that question, I probably would have just like looked and blinked for a while. We call that looking
Mm-hmm.
and blinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if I would even have a way to wrap my head around that question.
Mm-hmm.
But after what we've been told and what I've seen during those sessions, um, you get this sense of expansion or expansiveness, whatever that word
Mm-hmm.
is that I'm looking for. And you have this sense of connection to it all.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I think about that question, right? Um, because yes, this physical form in which we're occupying at the moment, uh, on the grand scheme of things, can seem very insignificant.
Mm-hmm.
But if every speck of all that is a contributing factor to all that is, and it provides that experience with the expansion that never ends, then it is significant. It is greatly significant,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in my beliefs. So, so I mean, yeah, and seeing how it is connected to it all, like this is where we start getting into, some of the rabbit holes of all the different questions that we have because we're under this veil of forgetfulness when we get here, and so we don't
Mm-hmm.
remember all the things that we know from outside of this. And I don't even think that from outside of this we know everything either, because if we did, we wouldn't come to learn. if
Mm-hmm.
we if we knew everything, then why would we feel like we need to learn more?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To learn what it's like to be in one set of shoes versus another. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah.
I know that, like, okay, so a little bit of background. I grew up for many years in the Baptist religion, of offshoot of Christianity, and so one of my first thoughts when this question was asked was, well, if say God is the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to switch some words around.
Right.
If God is the universe and we're questioning whether or not the universe or God has the time to listen to our questions, but how often are we taught to pray and, express gratitude and appreciation and love through prayer, and then asking for assistance and help through prayer? So if we're taught through religious aspects to talk to God or the universe, then is that not a teaching that God has time to listen, that we are heard? And my next train of thought was, more in the metaphysical sense, more in the stuff that I've learned in the past few years, that if we originated from one source, whether we believe that was from the Big Bang or from God, then and and if because we all originated from one source, then we are all connected. Then when we are talking to the universe, are we not also talking to ourselves? So do we not have time to listen to ourselves?
I think that has a lot to do with the whole awakening, I want to say, I kind of awareness
Yeah.
of awareness, maybe like of wanting to discover more about the within, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Because of that connection, because of that, first off, before I continue, I'm on full 100% speculation along with the rest of you, right? Like, for me, I can only go off of my own personal experiences and the thoughts in which that I'm going to travel down in this conversation. So, you know, take the information, use your own discernment, ask yourself your own questions, right? Like that's all you can do.
And that's all
So,
we're doing here.
and that's all we're
It's
doing
just
here.
asking
Right.
questions, right?
So, where do I begin? so so and that, I mean, that's also like one of the questions that I have. Where did I begin?
Where do I begin?
Where
Where
was
do I
that
go from
spark?
here?
Right. Like where was that spark? Um I was just having this conversation with my partner, like, about this exact thing, like starting to remember different timelines, I guess you want to call it, different lives, different past lives, having full like moments of memory, which was wild to me to like experience that. And then we got into the conversation of like, well, is it imagination? And I'm like, well, I mean, it could be, right? That's highly possible. But isn't it the imagination that allows us to create in the first place?
Absolutely.
Right. So if our imagination is the ultimate creator, and that is tied to things like intuition, that is tied to your soul, whatever, thought processes we want to go here. And that is tied to the infinite being that we are, and we're tied to the rest of the universe, then every thought that we have can create our own reality in which that is expanding those that are also doing their own creation. And if we're connected to one another and we're connected to all that is and that significance that we were just describing, then we are just an ever expanding growth process of learning for all that is.
Let's talk about the significance,
Mm,
that word,
yep.
specifically. I was meditating this morning, and this was some of the conversation or thoughts that were going through my head about this exact thing was about how significant we are. Because if we are not alive, then our lives are not happening. So, in living, we are imagining, we are making choices. Those thoughts, those choices, those actions are what is creating our reality. And we are the ones having those thoughts, having those communications, making those choices, taking those actions.
Yep.
We are the creators of our experience. Therefore, we are quite significant in this creation of this reality. Agreed? Yeah. And done.
And we're done, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining this episode. Just kidding.
So in the big picture, right? We've got this big vast infinite universe, And we have all of these individuals, which when we look at the mass, like the collective en masse,
Mhm.
it's easy to where to start to think that we are insignificant. And I can understand why that thought process comes into play. Can't say I haven't experienced it myself plenty of times.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Me too.
But again, if you are not here making these, choices, creating this life, like then there is nothing to create. Like then we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Mm. So this is where we have the question marks around the polarity,
Mhm.
right? And if there wasn't, what was that I was listening to? I think it was by Alan Watts, um, where he goes into talking about, you know, those things that we perceive as dark, right?
Mhm.
And how that creates the contrast that we're experiencing and how that actually assists us with our expansion and our growth and the likes and the dislikes. Like, how would you know what to like if you didn't experience things that you don't like, right? Um, and that is a man, it's a hard pill to swallow when we're sitting up in this physical form and dealing with and moving through and navigating through all of the different dislikes, right?
Mhm.
Um, oh man, because now we can start talking about what it is that we're choosing to focus on to create our expansion. Are we trying to expand from a place of contrast? Are we trying to, I don't know, only learn from the contrast?
Mhm.
What is it that we're shifting our focus on? Because we can get all love and light up in here all we want to, right?
Mhm.
But it doesn't mean that the things that we're not loving and is not filling us with light doesn't actually still create light. So yeah. So I mean, these are the pondered upon questions of all of us, I'm sure, at some
Mhm.
form of another,
Mhm.
especially when you do
Yeah.
start to really wonder and ask.
I think also another train of thought that comes into play is yes, I may be significant in my life, but what about as a collective?
Mm. And I think that's one of the things that it's so hard to influence on others, because I know that sometimes when we talk about certain topics, like we're wanting to influence the fact that we are all connected, that we all, do impact each other. And we've, even gone through certain examples on how that works, right?
Mhm.
But because we're having this physical experience and we're requiring, our brains to absorb what we can physically see and touch and smell and taste and all the things, right? And that's the experience that we're having. And somebody in a completely different country is having their own experience and their own senses and, whatever else. And you're like, well, how does that person affect me in any way with what I do?
Mhm.
Right. And then you start to expand upon that. So if I didn't have any form of, connection with Mount Glass in any way, if I hadn't seen the things that I've seen, I'd probably still have that same thought process on an occasion. I mean, I'm also genuinely not a bad person. So, like, I don't want to go around harming others, but like, that's, God, I just heard what I said. Anyway, that's judgmental. So, see, we're all dealing with it. So, like, but I mean, I'm saying that like the significance for me and in this experience and how I feel like it impacts others, which is still impacting myself, is mostly because I've experienced it for myself and I've seen it for myself in a different light, you know? And that showed me this connection to all of us, and that I too could have been experiencing a life where I was the one being harmed, you know,
Mhm.
or so on and so forth. And so, because of that knowledge, because of that experience myself, you know, it makes me less likely to want to impose that on somebody else. So, in that case, you have even more of a significance to not, I don't know, want to do those types of things. And you start to understand that it is impactful to others, even if you don't know that person.
I think if you are in the place of, oh, well, I'm not significant, I'm not having a big impact, you're not seeing how you are impacting those around you. And we've all heard of the butterfly effect,
Mm.
right? A butterfly flaps its wings and what is it? A monsoon happens on the other side of the world or something like that. Probably quoted that wrong. You
I've
get
seen
my
that
gist.
sci-fi movie. It's cool.
Yeah, yeah. So our if we are thinking of ourselves as insignificant, we are negating our connectedness. We are negating the power that we hold within us to create. We are not appreciating or having a hard time seeing the love and the support that's coursing through the collective at all times. So my question to those that are still questioning their significance is, what's holding you back from feeling significant? Is it
This
because that's feels too much responsibility? Like, because when I think about it, sometimes that can be overwhelming.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it for me that goes back to it's the beliefs,
Mhm.
right? Which has a lot to do with the choices that are made on the environment that you're sustaining in, which can be very hard because there's kids out there that are being raised in said environment. But then, what if, I'm asking a question here, what if you, as the infinite being you are, knew exactly what dynamic you were going to go into and have said childhood experience? What if you, as the infinite being that you are, decided that this is going to be the form of expansion that I'm going to contribute to by learning through and navigating through and then eventually remembering who I am?
Mhm.
I am.
Amen. I
Yeah.
am. Mhm.
So those types of so when I think of the word significant, just to kind of go back to that for you, when I think of the word significant, if we are all connected, if we all believe, um, if we all understand that we are connected and that we contribute to the expansion of all that is, the significance is massive in even in that case. The choices and the decisions and the learning and the growth and the experiences, whether you perceive it as good or bad, it all contributes to the ever growing of I am.
Mhm.
And so that by itself is quite significant. Whether you choose to feel the overwhelm by that pressure, it shouldn't be pressure. It's pretty fantastic that that's what we do. um, you know, you can choose to play with it. You can choose to experience the sadness of it. You can choose to be angry about it. I do, in my beliefs, I do believe that when you zoom way out of this little world that we're in, on this little planet that we're having, right? You won't look at it in the form of judgment that we look at it from here.
Mhm. Mhm. I just want to circle back to last week's episode also.
Okay.
Humility,
Mm,
recognizing that no one person is more significant or important or more valuable than another, but recognizing that we all have value, we all have significance. You are important. I am important. We are all important.
agreed.
Especially, I don't know, again, back to a belief, especially right now in this time of being able to give so much love to the collective and really needing to do so. My philosophical belief.
My philosophical belief. I love that. And
So, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, this is where going within, looking at self, you know, starting to ask yourself these questions, ponder around, play with it,
Mhm.
and use your imagination.
And I'd even say, what if? What
Mhm.
if, yes, the universe does listen? What if you are the creator? What if you can choose how you perceive an experience? What if you can lift this world up with more love? Would you not? Is it worth trying, anyways?
What if you can, at the blink of an eye, create the reality in which you exist?
Mm-hmm.
What if you wake up one day and you can completely change your entire reality? What
And your
it
course,
and your
yes.
course, right? Right. Mm,
Lots of what ifs. I love what ifs.
me
What if?
too.
Oh, this is one of my favorite recent things that I've heard on the Fun Astrology podcast. They also do the subconscious mind mastery. Is what if up? Meaning,
Ooh,
what if things turn out good? What if the outcome elevates you? What if it's good? We get so focused on what if all the negative things, but what if up?
you know, story time. So, Carrie and I, when we first started to consider doing a podcast, that's what we asked. We asked, what if our experiences and the things that we are discovering and the beliefs that we are playing with impacted somebody that listens to us, just one, in a positive way?
Mm-hmm,
It started with a what if.
mm-hmm.
And here we are, almost a year
Almost a year
later,
later. Jinx.
and we have received so much back from those that we are servicing.
Mhm.
And and we've received so much back on just even servicing ourselves by doing this, which is freaking cool. Servicing ourselves. I said it.
Yeah.
I said it, damn it. Hey,
We're
not being
adults.
we're I only adult for a certain amount of time a day,
Yeah.
okay? Very specific days of the week.
That's a whole nother topic. This idea of what it's to be an adult. All righty, y'all. We'll get back to letting you service yourself. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. We love you so much. And please don't forget to love first
Love last.
and love always.
Bye, everybody. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, comment below. Tell us what your what ifs are. And find our website if you'd like. It's www.lovealwaysself.com. Enjoy the rest of your day, folks.
Hey, listener, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this moment. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to our next connection.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow to stay notified of new content from Love Always Self. If you have any questions or topics you'd like for us to discuss, please hit us up on any of our social media platforms linked in the show notes below.
I'm Karista.
And I'm Shyra.
And until next time, remember to love first,
love last,
and love always. Love Always Self podcast is meant for entertainment purposes only. We do not make any warranties about the completeness, reliability, and accuracy of the information presented in this podcast. Any action you choose to take upon the information in this podcast is strictly done so at your own risk, and we will not be held liable for any losses and damages in connection with the use of our podcast. Any and all medical concerns should be addressed with a licensed healthcare provider, as well as any questions that may be derived from the information discussed in this podcast.